My mother-in-law changed my bedroom lock while I was out of town. She had no idea what I'd just installed. I've always considered myself a reasonable person, patient, understanding, even when it came to my mother-in-law, Margaret. I spent 3 years making excuses for her behavior. 3 years of telling myself I was overreacting. 3 years of uncomfortable Sunday dinners, uninvited visits, and that piercing stare that made me feel like an intruder in my own home. "You're being paranoid," Daniel would tell me with that gentle smile of his. "Mom's just old-fashioned." Old-fashioned. That's what we called it when she rearranged our kitchen while we were at work. When she accidentally threw away my family photographs during her self-appointed cleaning sessions. When she asked Daniel, right in front of me, if he was absolutely certain about our marriage on our anniversary. It wasn't until I found her in our bedroom one Tuesday afternoon, holding my grandmother's sapphire earrings up to the light, that something in me finally snapped. "Oh, Eliza, you startled me," she said, not bothering to put the jewelry down. "I was just admiring these. They look quite valuable." I took them from her hand, careful to keep my voice steady. "They are. They're also private." "Well," she huffed, smoothing her perfectly pressed slacks, "there's no need to be so territorial. This house should have been Daniel's inheritance. You know, before you came along." There it was, the comment she'd made at least a dozen times since Daniel and I bought the colonial-style home just outside the city limits. The house that had belonged to Margaret's late aunt, the house that had been sold to pay for nursing home care before Margaret could claim what was rightfully hers. Our real estate agent hadn't even known about the family connection when she showed us the property. It was pure coincidence, or cosmic irony, that we fell in love with a house Margaret had coveted for years. "Margaret," I said, the words forming before I could stop them. "I have a conference call in 10 minutes. I'd appreciate if you'd call before dropping by next time." Her smile never reached her eyes. "Of course, dear. I just wanted to bring by some of Danny's favorite cookies. You know, the ones he loved as a child that you never quite got the recipe right for." After she left, I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the earrings in my palm. My hands were shaking. Not from anger, but from the sudden, absolute certainty that I wasn't imagining things. That the prickling sensation at the back of my neck whenever Margaret was around wasn't paranoia, it was instinct. That night, I casually asked Daniel, "Does your mother have a key to our house?" He looked up from his laptop, brow furrowed. "I don't think so. Why?" "She dropped by today while you were at work. I was just wondering how she got in." "She probably knocked, babe. You were probably on a call and didn't hear her." "But I had been home all day, working in the kitchen, the front door in full view." I didn't push it. Instead, I did something that still makes me question what kind of person I've become. I checked our spare key hidden in the fake rock by the garden. It was gone. The business trip to Seattle couldn't have come at a better time. 3 days away would give me space to think, to plan. I told Daniel I was nervous about leaving the house empty. "Mom can check on things," he suggested, and I had to hide my grimace. "Actually," I said, "I was thinking about installing a security system." Daniel frowned. "Those are expensive, Eliza. And we live in one of the safest neighborhoods in town." I kissed his cheek. "It would make me feel better, please." He couldn't argue with that. Daniel had always been protective, always wanting me to feel safe. It was one of the things I loved most about him, and one of the reasons his blindness to his mother's behavior hurt so much. The next day, I visited 3 different electronics stores in neighboring towns, paying cash for everything. High-definition cameras, small enough to hide in plain sight. Motion sensors. An app that would send alerts directly to my phone. I felt like I was preparing for war, and in a way, I suppose I was. Installing them was easier than I'd expected. One in the living room, disguised as a USB charger. Another in the kitchen, hidden in a decorative clock. The bedroom was trickier. Margaret seemed to gravitate there whenever she visited. But I finally settled on replacing the smoke detector with a model that contained both a functioning alarm and a hidden camera. I spent hours testing angles, making sure the footage was clear, that the motion sensors worked properly. Each time I got an alert on my phone, my heart jumped, thinking, what if she's here now? The night before my flight, Daniel found me staring at the bedroom ceiling, wide awake at 2 a.m. "Hey," he said, pulling me closer. "What's going on in that beautiful brain of yours?" I nearly told him then. About the cameras. about his mother, about the growing fear that had taken root in my chest. But something held me back. If I was wrong, if this was all in my head, I'd be destroying his relationship with his mother for nothing. Just nervous about the presentation, I lied, curling into him. You're going to knock them dead, he whispered into my hair. Just like you always do. As I packed the next morning, I made sure to leave certain drawers slightly ajar to position my jewelry box just so on the dresser. Small details that would tell me if anything had been disturbed. Margaret arrived to see me off, bringing homemade muffins and that familiar tight smile. Don't you worry about a thing, she told me, embracing me in a hug that felt like being wrapped in plastic wrap. I'll take good care of Daniel while you're gone. I'm only away for 3 days, Margaret, I said, forcing a laugh. Her eyes flicked to my suitcase. A lot can happen in 3 days, dear. As Daniel drove me to the airport, I kept checking my phone, making sure the app was working. Each camera showed an empty, peaceful house. For now, you okay? Daniel asked. You seem tense. I reached for his hand. Just hoping the presentation goes well. It will, he said, squeezing my fingers. And when you get back, I'm taking you out to celebrate. Just the two of us. I nodded, trying to ignore the voice in my head that whispered, if your suspicions are right, nothing will ever be just the two of us again. The last thing I did before boarding the plane was check the cameras one more time. Everything was still, quiet, normal. But I knew in my bones that wouldn't last. Seattle welcomed me with its signature drizzle and gray skies. I spent the first evening rehearsing my presentation in my hotel room, the constant patter of rain against the window, a soothing backdrop. Every 30 minutes or so, I'd check my phone, opening the security app to see empty rooms and still shadows. No alerts, no movement. Maybe I really was being paranoid. When I finally fell asleep, I dreamed of Margaret standing over our bed, staring down at Daniel with an expression I couldn't quite place. Not quite motherly, not quite innocent. The first day of the conference went smoothly. I nailed my presentation on digital marketing strategies, fielded questions with confidence, and even landed a potential new client during the networking lunch. Throughout it all, my phone remained silent. No notifications, no alerts. By the second day, I'd almost forgotten about the cameras. Almost. I was mid-conversation with a colleague at the hotel bar when my phone buzzed. Not the usual text message vibration. This was the distinctive pattern I'd set for security alerts. My hand trembled slightly as I excused myself and stepped away to check. Motion detected. Front door. The timestamp showed 2:17 p.m. I tapped on the notification, and the app loaded, showing me the live feed from the living room camera. A figure moved through the front hall. Margaret. Expected, but still my heart raced. Daniel had mentioned she might drop by to water the plants. I was about to put my phone away when another notification came through. Motion detected. Bedroom. I froze. Why would Margaret need to go into our bedroom to water the non-existent plants by our bed? The footage showed her entering our room, glancing around with a furtive expression I'd never seen before. She ran her hands along the dresser, the nightstand, the closet door, testing, search. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call, her voice coming through the camera's microphone with surprising clarity. Yes, I'm here now. The house is empty. A pause. Of course I'm sure. She's in Seattle until tomorrow night, and Daniel's at work until 7. My stomach dropped. I excused myself completely from the conversation at the bar and hurried back to my room, eyes glued to my phone screen. Margaret was speaking to someone about our home, about our schedules when we'd be away. 30 minutes later, a man I didn't recognize arrived at the front door. Margaret greeted him like an old friend, though his uniform and toolbox suggested he was there for professional reasons. Thanks for coming on such short notice, Jim, she said, leading him through the house. No problem, Mrs. Winters. You said it was the bedroom door? My blood ran cold. The bedroom door? What was she doing? I watched helpless from 800 miles away as Jim examined our bedroom door lock. He nodded, said something about it being no trouble at all, and began to work. The footage was undeniable. Margaret and a locksmith were changing the lock to our bedroom. My bedroom, without permission, without reason. Make sure it's a good one, Margaret instructed. Something sturdy. This here's a grade 1 deadbolt, the man replied. Same kind they use in commercial buildings. Nobody's getting through this without the key. Or without the door being completely broken down, I thought, my heart hammering against my ribs. After he finished, Margaret paid him in cash. I noticed she pulled the money from her own wallet, not from anywhere in our house, and showed him out. Then she returned to the bedroom, this time with a new key in hand. What happened next made my legs give out. I sank onto the hotel bed, watching in horror as my mother-in-law systematically began to go through our things. She opened my drawers first, rifling through my clothes with undisguised disgust. She held up a silk nightgown Daniel had given me for our anniversary, sneered, and tossed it aside like it was contaminated. She moved to the closet next, pushing my clothes to one side to get to the storage boxes on the upper shelf. One by one, she pulled them down, opening each to examine the contents. Photo albums, winter clothes, Christmas decorations. She seemed disappointed by each one, until she reached a small wooden box at the back. My jewelry box. The one with the false bottom where I kept my grandmother's ring and our marriage certificate. She tried to open it, found it locked, and then I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She pulled out a small set of picks and began to work on the lock. "Where are you hiding it, Eliza?" she muttered. "I know it's here somewhere." My blood turned to ice. What was she looking for? What did she think I had? The lock gave way with a small click, and Margaret's face lit up with triumph. She opened the box, lifted the false bottom I thought only I knew about, and her expression darkened when she found nothing but the ring and certificate. "Damn it," she hissed, slamming the box shut. She stood in the middle of our bedroom, hands on her hips, surveying the space like a general planning a siege. Then she nodded to herself as if coming to a decision. "Well," she said to the empty room, "if it's not here yet, it will be soon enough." I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what she was planning. But as she locked our bedroom door with her new key and left the house, one thing became crystal clear: this was just the beginning. Section 3. The Secret Agenda. Sleep eluded me that night. I lay in the hotel bed staring at my phone, watching Margaret's comings and goings with increasing horror. After installing the new lock, she left for about an hour, then returned carrying 2 shopping bags. I couldn't see what was inside, but her purposeful stride as she re-entered our bedroom sent fresh waves of anxiety coursing through me. I called Daniel twice. Both times, it went straight to voicemail. Was he working late, or was something else happening? At 7:30 p.m., my question was answered when Daniel arrived home. I watched him notice the new bedroom lock immediately, his confusion evident even through the grainy footage. "Mom?" I heard him call out. "Are you here?" Margaret emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel as if she'd been there all afternoon. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping with maternal concern. "I made your favorite casserole." "What's with the bedroom door?" Daniel asked, gesturing toward it. Margaret's expression shifted to one of practiced innocence. "Oh, that old lock was sticking. I noticed it when I came to water the plants. I was worried you might get locked out of your own bedroom. So I called Jim. You remember Jim? He helped with Aunt Cora's estate to fix it." Daniel frowned. "You changed our lock without asking?" "Don't be upset, Danny. I was just trying to help." She placed a hand on his arm. "Besides, I have some concerns." "About what?" Margaret guided him to the living room, just within view of the hidden camera. "I didn't want to say anything, but I found something disturbing last time I was here." My heart hammered against my ribs. What was she doing? "What do you mean?" Daniel asked, tension evident in his voice. "In your bedroom drawer." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "I wasn't snooping. I swear. I was looking for a spare light bulb in Eliza's nightstand when I found this." She handed the envelope to Daniel, who opened it with visible reluctance. His eyes widened. "Where did this money come from? And this jewelry? I've never seen any of this before." I gasped out loud in my hotel room. The money and jewelry she mentioned in the conversation weren't mine. Margaret had planted them. "There's more," Margaret continued, her voice low and conspirative. "I've noticed things missing from my house. Small things at first, a silver frame, some of my mother's earrings. I never said anything because, well, I wasn't certain." "Are you saying Eliza stole from you?" Daniel's voice rose in disbelief. Margaret placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "I know it's hard to hear, sweetheart. I was shocked myself. But think about it, all those business trips, the sudden push for a security system, but only when you suggested I check on the house. I think she might be hiding something. I was watching a master manipulator at work. Every word calculated, every gesture designed to plant seeds of doubt. This is insane, Daniel said, standing up. Eliza wouldn't steal, and she definitely wouldn't hide cash and jewelry in our bedroom. Unless it wasn't supposed to be found, Margaret suggested. The lock on the bedroom, maybe it wasn't meant to keep people out, but to keep secrets in. I wanted to scream at the screen, to tell Daniel I was being framed. Instead, I watched helplessly as doubt flickered across his face. I need to call her, he said, reaching for his phone. Margaret caught his wrist. And say what? That you think she's stealing? That you found her secret stash? If I'm wrong, and God, I hope I am, she'll be devastated. You didn't trust her. If I'm right, she let the implication hang in the air. Daniel sank back onto the couch, the envelope still in his hands. Let me make you dinner, Margaret said softly. We can talk about what to do. After they moved to the kitchen, I frantically texted Daniel. Hey, just checking in, how's everything at home? No response. For the next hour, I watched Margaret orchestrate her plan with terrifying precision. She served dinner, poured wine, and spoke in hushed, concerned tones while systematically dismantling Daniel's trust in me. She was careful never to directly accuse, always prefacing her most damaging statements with, I could be wrong, but, and I hate to even think this. By the time Daniel went to bed alone, on the couch, Margaret had accomplished exactly what she'd set out to do, plant a seed of doubt. After he fell asleep, she returned to our bedroom. This time, her movements were more confident. She wasn't searching anymore, she was staging. I watched in outrage as she planted additional items in my drawers. A man's watch I'd never seen before tucked into my sock drawer, a small bag of what looked like expensive jewelry hidden in the lining of my suitcase in the closet. And most disturbingly, several personal items that I recognized as belonging to her, strategically placed among my things. Soon, everything will be hers, will it? She muttered, looking at a photo of Daniel and me on our wedding day. We'll see about that. Before leaving, she made one final call. It's done, she said to whoever was on the other end. I'll bring Teresa and John by tomorrow to see for themselves. Once they know, the whole family will know. As she locked our bedroom door with her new key, I realized with cold clarity exactly what was happening. Margaret wasn't just trying to make me look bad. She was systematically laying groundwork to destroy my marriage, my reputation, and my life. This wasn't petty dislike. This was psychological warfare. And I was 800 miles away, watching it all unfold through a screen. Sleep eluded me that night. I lay in the hotel bed staring at my phone, watching Margaret's comings and goings with increasing horror. After installing the new lock, she left for about an hour, then returned carrying 2 shopping bags. I couldn't see what was inside, but her purposeful stride as she re-entered our bedroom sent fresh waves of anxiety coursing through me. I called Daniel twice. Both times, it went straight to voicemail. Was he working late? Or was something else happening? At 7:30 p.m., my question was answered when Daniel arrived home. I watched him notice the new bedroom lock immediately, his confusion evident even through the grainy footage. Mom? I heard him call out. Are you here? Margaret emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel as if she'd been there all afternoon. Hi, sweetheart, she said, her voice dripping with maternal concern. I made your favorite casserole. What's with the bedroom door? Daniel asked, gesturing toward it. Margaret's expression shifted to one of practiced innocence. Oh, that old lock was sticking. I noticed it when I came to water the plants. I was worried you might get locked out of your own bedroom, so I called Jim. You remember Jim? He helped with Aunt Cora's estate to fix it. Daniel frowned. You changed our lock without asking? Don't be upset, Danny. I was just trying to help. She placed a hand on his arm. Besides, I have some concern. About what? Margaret guided him to the living room, just within view of the hidden camera. I didn't want to say anything, but I found something disturbing last time I was here. My heart hammered against my ribs. What was she doing? What do you mean? Daniel asked, tension evident in his voice. In your bedroom drawer. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. I wasn't nooping, I swear. I was looking for a spare light bulb in Eliza's nightstand when I found this. She handed the envelope to Daniel, who opened it with visible reluctance. His eyes widened. Where did this money come from? And this jewelry? I've never seen any of this before. I gasped out loud in my hotel room. The money and jewelry she mentioned in the conversation weren't mine. Margaret had planted them. There's more, Margaret continued, her voice low and conspirative. I've noticed things missing from my house. Small things at first, a silver frame, some of my mother's earrings. I never said anything because, well, I wasn't certain. Are you saying Eliza stole from you? Daniel's voice rose in disbelief. Margaret placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. I know it's hard to hear, sweetheart. I was shocked myself. But think about it. All those business trips, the sudden push for a security system, but only when you suggested I check on the house. I think she might be hiding something. I was watching a master manipulator at work. Every word calculated, every gesture designed to plant seeds of doubt. This is insane, Daniel said, standing up. Eliza wouldn't steal, and she definitely wouldn't hide cash and jewelry in our bedroom. Unless it wasn't supposed to be found, Margaret suggested. The lock on the bedroom, maybe it wasn't meant to keep people out, but to keep secrets in. I wanted to scream at the screen, to tell Daniel I was being framed. Instead, I watched helplessly as doubt flickered across his face. I need to call her, he said, reaching for his phone. Margaret caught his wrist. And say what? That you think she's stealing? That you found her secret stash? If I'm wrong, and God, I hope I am, she'll be devastated you didn't trust her. If I'm right, she let the implication hang in the air. Daniel sank back onto the couch, the envelope still in his hands. Let me make you dinner, Margaret said softly. We can talk about what to do. After they moved to the kitchen, I frantically texted Daniel, Hey, just checking in, how's everything at home? No response. For the next hour, I watched Margaret orchestrate her plan with terrifying precision. She served dinner, poured wine, and spoke in hushed, concerned tones while systematically dismantling Daniel's trust in me. She was careful never to directly accuse, always prefacing her most damaging statements with, I could be wrong, but, and I hate to even think this. By the time Daniel went to bed alone, on the couch, Margaret had accomplished exactly what she'd set out to do, plant a seed of doubt. After he fell asleep, she returned to our bedroom. This time, her movements were more confident. She wasn't searching anymore. She was staging. I watched in outrage as she planted additional items in my drawers. A man's watch I'd never seen before tucked into my sock drawer, a small bag of what looked like expensive jewelry hidden in the lining of my suitcase in the closet, and most disturbingly, several personal items that I recognized as belonging to her, strategically placed among my things. Soon everything will be hers, will it? She muttered, looking at a photo of Daniel and me on our wedding day. We'll see about that. Before leaving, she made one final call. It's done, she said to whoever was on the other end. I'll bring Teresa and John by tomorrow to see for themselves. Once they know, the whole family will know. As she locked our bedroom door with her new key, I realized with cold clarity exactly what was happening. Margaret wasn't just trying to make me look bad. She was systematically laying groundwork to destroy my marriage, my reputation, and my life. This wasn't petty dislike. This was psychological warfare. And I was 800 miles away, watching it all unfold through a screen. Panic threatened to overwhelm me. My hands shook as I tried to process what I'd just witnessed. Margaret wasn't just invading our privacy, she was constructing an elaborate scheme to destroy me. I paced my hotel room, mind racing, trying to decide what to do. I could call Daniel, try to explain everything, but would he believe me over his mother? The doubt she'd planted was already taking root. I could see it in his face, and if I told him about the cameras, would he feel betrayed that I'd installed them without telling him? No. I needed more than just my word against Margaret's. I needed irrefutable proof. I canceled my flight home, scheduled for the following evening, and booked a new one for the day after, giving myself an extra 24 hours of surveillance. Then I called my boss and fabricated a story about a potential client wanting an additional meeting. She was thrilled. Business was business, after all. Sleep was out of the question. I spent the night documenting everything. Screenshots of Margaret planting items, transcriptions of her conversations, timestamps of her comings and goings. I created a detailed timeline, noting every manipulative tactic she employed. Dawn broke over Seattle as I finished organizing the evidence. My presentation that morning was a blur. Somehow I managed to appear professional while my personal life crumbled in real time on my phone screen beneath the conference table. The notifications kept coming throughout the day. Motion detected. Front door. Margaret had returned. This time with company. I recognized her sister Teresa and Teresa's husband John, Daniel's aunt and uncle. The three of them stood in our living room, Margaret speaking animatedly while gesturing toward our bedroom. "I just don't know what to do," I heard her say, her voice breaking with fabricated emotion. "Daniel is devastated. To think that all this time—" "Are you absolutely certain?" Teresa asked, her expression grave. "See for yourself," Margaret replied, producing the new key to our bedroom. I watched as she led them through a guided tour of what she called the evidence. Every planted item was presented as a shocking discovery. My private journals were opened and read aloud, with Margaret selecting passages out of context to paint me as unstable and manipulative. "Listen to this," she said, flipping through my journal. "Sometimes I wonder if coming into this family was a mistake. If they'll ever truly accept me. She's clearly been planning something from the beginning." My throat tightened with rage. Those words, written during a moment of vulnerability after a particularly difficult family dinner, were being twisted into something sinister. Throughout the afternoon, more relatives arrived. Daniel's cousins, his other aunt, even his childhood friend Mark. One by one, they were ushered into our bedroom, shown the evidence, and fed Margaret's narrative about my supposed deception. By evening, I had hours of footage showing Margaret systematically turning Daniel's entire family against me. In one particularly disturbing clip, she held up my wedding dress from the closet. "Such a shame," she said to Daniel's cousin Amy. "I never trusted her, you know. A woman who keeps secrets eventually brings a house down." When Daniel arrived home from work, he was greeted by a full family intervention. I watched, helpless and horrified, as Margaret orchestrated the entire scene. They sat him down, expressed their concerns, and showed him even more evidence that Margaret had planted throughout the day. To his credit, Daniel initially defended me. "This isn't like Eliza. There has to be some explanation." "We're just worried about you, sweetheart," Margaret said, her voice dripping with false concern. "First the jewelry in her drawer, now all these other things. What will we find next?" I knew I had to act before Margaret's poison spread any further. I downloaded all the footage to my laptop, backed it up to a secure cloud server, and edited together the most damning clips. Margaret with the locksmith, planting items in my drawers, rehearsing her concerned speech before Daniel arrived home, and coaching family members on what to say. Then I booked the earliest flight back I could find, a red-eye that would land me home just after dawn. Before boarding, I sent Daniel a simple text: "Something important has come up. I'm coming home early. Please don't make any decisions until we can talk face to face. I love you." His response came hours later, as I was somewhere over the Midwest. "Okay, just that. No, I love you too. No questions about my early return." Margaret's plan was working perfectly. As the plane began its descent toward home, I finalized my strategy. I wouldn't confront Margaret immediately. I wouldn't show my hand too soon. I would let her believe she had won. Let her gather everyone together for what she probably thought would be the final act of her performance. And then I would spring the trap. I had one advantage Margaret didn't know about. I knew exactly what game she was playing, while she had no idea I'd been watching her every move. She thought she was the puppet master, pulling all the strings from the shadows. She had no idea she was about to take center stage in a show of my design. As the plane touched down, I took a deep breath. The next few hours would determine everything. My marriage, my reputation, my future. But for the first time since discovering Margaret's betrayal, I felt something other than fear. I felt ready. The taxi dropped me off a block from our house. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the neighborhood in soft gold light that belied the darkness waiting inside my home. I needed to see the situation before anyone saw me. From behind a large oak tree across the street, I observed our driveway. Margaret's silver Lexus was already there, as were 3 other cars I recognized as belonging to Daniel's relatives. An early morning family meeting, or rather, an ambush. I activated the app on my phone. The living room camera showed 7 people gathered. Daniel, looking exhausted and hollow-eyed on the couch. Margaret standing by the fireplace in a position of authority. Teresa and John sitting rigidly in armchairs. Daniel's cousins Amy and Peter and his uncle, Robert, Margaret's brother. "Just don't understand how she could do this to us," Margaret was saying, her voice catching with practiced emotion. "To you, Danny, after everything we've done for her." "We don't know for sure," Daniel began, but was cut off by Teresa. "The evidence is overwhelming, Daniel. Those items didn't plant themselves." I slipped a small voice recorder into my pocket and pressed record. Then I walked quietly to our front door, insert my key, and entered as silently as possible. I could hear their voices from the entryway. "I think we need to discuss next steps," Margaret said firmly. "The locks should be changed. All of them this time. And I think you should stay with me for a while, just until we figure out what else she might have taken." I stepped into the living room, and 7 heads whipped around in shock. "Eliza!" Daniel stood up, his expression a complex mix of confusion, hurt, and was that relief. "Hi everyone," I said calmly, setting my suitcase down. "Sorry to interrupt what appears to a family meeting. About me, it seems." Margaret recovered first, her surprise morphing instantly into righteous indignation. "How dare you just waltz in here like nothing's happened, after what you've done?" I tilted my head slightly. "And what exactly have I done, Margaret?" "Don't play innocent," she spat. "We found everything. The jewelry you stole from me, the cash, the watch from Robert's collection." Robert nodded gravely. "A Rolex that belonged to my father." "That's quite interesting," I said, maintaining an even tone, considering I've never seen that watch before in my life. "Stop lying." Margaret stepped toward me, her face flushed with anger. Or was it fear? "Daniel, are you going to let her speak to us this way? After she invaded our home." "Your home?" I raised an eyebrow. "I believe this house belongs to Daniel and me." "This house should have been in our family," Margaret hissed. "If that nursing home hadn't drained Aunt Cora's accounts." "So that's what this is really about," I said softly. "The house." Daniel looked between us, bewilderment etched on his face. "What's going on, Eliza? Why are you home early? Did you know about this meeting?" "I came home early because I discovered something disturbing while I was away," I replied, my eyes never leaving Margaret's. "Would you like to know what I found, Margaret? Or should I show everyone?" A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone, walked to the large TV mounted on the wall, and connected it wirelessly. "I think it's time for a different kind of family meeting." "What is this?" Daniel asked. "The truth," I answered simply, and pressed play. The screen came to life, showing clear footage of Margaret bringing the locksmith to our bedroom. The timestamp was unmistakable, 2 days ago, while I was in Seattle. Next came footage of her planting the jewelry in my drawer, the cash in my nightstand, the watch in my closet. Gasps filled the room. Teresa's hand flew to her mouth. Robert stared in disbelief. That's not possible," Margaret stammered. "She's faked this somehow." I continued playing the footage. Margaret reading my journals aloud, deliberately twisting my words, Margaret rehearsing her concerned spurts before Daniel came home. Margaret on the phone saying, "Soon everything will be hers? We'll see about that." The color drained from Margaret's face as her carefully constructed narrative crumbled before her eyes. "You installed cameras?" Daniel whispered, looking at me. "I did," I admitted. I felt for a long time that something wasn't right, that Margaret was interfering in our lives more than was healthy. I never imagined it would go this far. "This is absurd," Margaret tried again, but her voice had lost its conviction. "Daniel, are you really going to believe some doctored videos over your own mother?" "Doctored?" I scrolled through the footage to the previous day. Here's you bringing Teresa and John to our bedroom, showing them my hidden stash, telling them I was unstable. Teresa looked at Margaret in horror. "You told us Eliza had admitted to everything, that she confessed to Daniel on the phone. And here," I continued, finding another clip, "is Margaret telling Amy that I've been manipulating Daniel since we met, that I trapped him into marriage." Amy's eyes widened. "You said Eliza told you that herself." The room erupted in confused, angry voices. Family members turned on Margaret, demanding explanations. Daniel sat stunned, watching the footage play on a loop, seeing his mother's true face perhaps for the first time. Margaret's composure finally shattered. "You don't understand. She's taken everything. My son, my family's home." "I didn't take anything, Margaret," I said quietly. "Daniel chose me, and we bought this house fair and square." "She's turned you all against me," Margaret cried, looking desperately around the room. "Can't you see what she's doing?" But no one was listening anymore. The evidence was too overwhelming, the betrayal too complete. In the stunned silence that followed, I looked directly at my mother-in-law. "I think it's time for you to leave." The days following the confrontation passed in a blur of uncomfortable conversations and realignments. Margaret left our house in tears that morning, still protesting her innocence even as the evidence played on loop behind her. Daniel's family members departed shortly after, each stopping to apologize to me with varying degrees of sincerity. Daniel and I were left alone with the wreckage of what his mother had done. "I don't know what to say," he whispered that first night. Sitting on the edge of our bed, the lock now changed back to the original. "I should have seen it. All these years." I sat beside him, taking his hand. "She's your mother. You wanted to see the best in her. But at what cost?" His voice cracked. "She almost destroyed us, Eliza. If you hadn't installed those cameras." The thought hung between us, heavy and unfinished. If I hadn't followed my instincts, if I had dismissed that nagging feeling as mere paranoia, where would we be now? "I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the cameras," I said softly. "I wasn't sure if I would believe you over her." He finished the sentence I couldn't. "You don't need to apologize for that. I'm the one who should be sorry. I let her get away with so much for so long." The next morning, we changed every lock in the house. As the locksmith, a different one this time, worked on the front door, I noticed Daniel on the phone in the kitchen, his voice uncharacteristically stern. "No, Mom, there's no misunderstanding. Yes, I saw the footage myself. No, Eliza didn't manipulate anything. This conversation is over." He hung up and caught me watching him. "She still doesn't get it. She actually asked when she could come over next." "What did you tell her?" "That she's not welcome in our home anymore." He ran a hand through his hair, looking both pained and resolved. "I told her we need time, a lot of time, and things will never be the same." I nodded, feeling a complex mixture of vindication and sadness. No matter how justified, severing a parental relationship was never easy. That afternoon, we received an unexpected visitor, Daniel's uncle Robert, Margaret's brother. He stood awkwardly on our porch, hat in hand. "I owe you both an apology," he said when we invited him in. "Especially you, Eliza. I should have known better than to trust Margaret's version of events." "Why did you?" I asked, genuinely curious. Robert sighed heavily. "Family history. Margaret has always been possessive of what she considers hers. When my father left his watch to me instead of to her son, she never forgave either of us. Using it to frame you." He shook his head. That was a new low. Even for her. Before leaving, Robert handed Daniel a thick folder. The deed to this house, the original will from Aunt Cora, and documentation showing the nursing home expenses. Everything was done legally. This house was never meant to be Margaret's. That night, as we sifted through the papers, another piece of the puzzle fell into place. "Look at this," Daniel said, holding up a letter. Aunt Cora specifically wrote that she wanted her house sold to cover her care, not passed to any family member. She knew how much Mom coveted it. So, all this time, Mom's been nursing a grudge against a dead woman's wishes, and taking it out on you. Over the following weeks, more family members reached out, each with their own stories about Margaret's manipulations. Patterns emerged: her possessiveness, her need for control, her talent for turning relatives against each other when it served her purposes. "I've been thinking," Daniel said, one evening, as we had dinner on the patio, "about the house." My stomach tightened. Despite everything, was he considering giving in to his mother's demands? "I want to put it solely in your name," he continued, surprising me. "Legally, it's already half yours, but I want the whole thing transferred to you." "Daniel, that's not necessary." "It is," he insisted. "Not because I think we'll ever separate, but because I want there to be no question ever about who this home belongs to. You are my family, Eliza. My first priority. This house is yours." Tears pricked at my eyes. "Are you sure?" "More sure than I've ever been about anything." 3 months later, we finalized the paperwork transferring the house entirely into my name. We also upgraded our security system, professionally this time, with cameras that were visible deterrents rather than hidden safeguards. Margaret made several attempts to re-establish contact. Tearful phone calls, a letter of apology that somehow still managed to include justifications for her behavior. Even an unexpected visit that was stopped at the door. She's not going to change, Daniel acknowledged sadly, after that last attempt. Not really. I squeezed his hand. I'm sorry, don't be. I choose us, this life we're building. And I'll keep choosing it every day. As for me, I kept the hidden cameras active for longer than was probably necessary. Old habits and new traumas die hard. But gradually, as weeks turned to months with no further incidents, I began to relax into the knowledge that our home was truly ours again. Or rather, mine. The deed framed in our office proved it. Sometimes at night, I would walk through the rooms of our house, and feel a quiet satisfaction. Not because I had won some battle with Margaret, but because I had trusted myself when it mattered most. The woman who had once felt like an intruder in her own home now slept soundly, secure in the knowledge that the walls around her were hers to protect, the space within them hers to define. For the first time since marrying into the Winters family, I finally felt like the true queen of my own home.